Chapter 1161. Olivia asked an errand boy to send the cream to Jenna first thing the next morning. She returned to the Heath residence, where it had been peaceful the past 2 days. Crystal was preoccupied because of Yale. Despite the resentment, she went along with him because she had promised her parents. Thanks to her dates, the Heath residence was peaceful these 2 days. "You're back. Come, take a look at this painting." Mason beckoned Olivia over. She stood next to him. "The colors complement each other well. You can hang it in a museum." Mason chuckled. "Oh, stop that. You look better. And it's all thanks to you. I think I can go to work starting tomorrow. Of course, you have to come along just in case. Is that fine with you?" "I'm fine with it. Mr. Linus mentioned it before. I won't leave until you fully recover." "I'm glad to hear that. I missed you when you weren't around these 2 days." A warm smile cracked on her face. "You're simply used to me talking to you." "Yeah, a lot of people eye for a chance to butter me up because of my power. Not even my wife speaks to me often. You're the only one I can talk to." Olivia stuck out a tongue. "Don't tell me too much, though. I'm afraid I won't be able to leave in the end." "Must you leave? If you wish to stay, I can satisfy any request of yours, no matter what it is." "Grandpa Mason, once you recover, I won't have any reason to stay. I hope you'll understand that." She continued playfully, "I'm still young. I don't wanna be an office worker. The world is big, and I have to see it myself. But it'll take one call for me to sprint all the way here. Frankly speaking, I think we click. Fine, I won't force you to stay. If you must leave, please make the departure later. How about after the new year?" "Okay." Olivia kept him company the whole morning. "I'll go make you lunch. Rest up." "Okay." Just as she was going to leave, Linus entered the room. Due to their previous encounter outside, guilt clenched her heart when she saw him. "Hi, Mr. Linus," she greeted as usual. He offered a nod of acknowledgement. "You're back. I'll leave you guys alone." Wearing an aloof expression, he stopped her from closing the door. "Vanessa, I have something to talk to you about later." She masked her surprise. "Sure." Questions formed in her head the moment the door was closed. Did he know? Should I run away? Running away now was useless anyway. Since she was recommended by Ethan, he might get into trouble if she ran away. She wondered if she was being in her head. It could be an inquiry about Mason's recovery. Those thoughts flying in her head distracted her when she was cutting the vegetables. The sharp edge of the knife cut her finger, and blood oozed out of the wound. She hissed in pain. A silhouette flew over in a heartbeat. "You all right?" He shoved her fingertip into his mouth, sucking the blood before she could respond to it. She had never been this intimate with another man aside from Ethan. His wet and soft tongue licked her fingertip. Before Olivia could withdraw her hand, a female voice shouted, "Wah, what are you guys doing?" Chapter 1162. The new arrival was Tatiana, who would come over every time Olivia made meals for Mason. Tatiana was simply curious about how Olivia made those meals which he couldn't stop praising. However, what Tatiana was witnessing right now was beyond her expectations. Olivia couldn't stop Linus from doing that due to his fast moves. Crystal's incident had put Tatiana on hot bricks. How could Tatiana possibly keep her cool at this? Almost immediately, she flung her hand at Olivia. Linus pulled Olivia behind him, taking the slap for her. "Mom, what are you doing? I've been wondering all along about why you and Mason care about an outsider so much. These days, I've been arranging blind dates for you and you're not interested in any of the dates. And now, this. Your sister almost gave me a stroke with her foolish deed. Are you going to give me a heart attack?" "This is a misunderstanding, Mom. There's nothing going on between Vanessa and me. Nothing. Do you think that I'm blind?" Tatiana yanked him away, shooting glares at Olivia. "How dare you seduce my son? I knew that you were up to something from the beginning. It's either you leave or I drive you out of the house." Others might not know about this, but Tatiana watched Olivia take the drink that night. Tatiana didn't bring it up in order not to expose herself as the culprit. The question was, who helped Olivia? Was it Linus? Tatiana mused, did they get together without my knowledge? It seems like we've lured a lion to our home. She tugged Olivia's hand. Come with me. Explain this to Mason. Words failed Olivia. It was no wonder Crystal didn't act like one of the Heaths to her. In hindsight, Linus took after Mason's disposition while Crystal was similar to Tatiana. But Tatiana didn't reveal her true colors thanks to her good acting. It wasn't easy for Mason to finally take a rest, and yet Tatiana kicked the door open. Feeling as if she had finally found fault in Olivia, Tatiana raised her voice. What are you doing? Mason kneaded his temple as he propped himself up. Tired, he looked at Tatiana. What's with the fuss? I could hear you from afar. Tatiana shoved Olivia forward. Say it yourself. What did you do? Feeling Mason's gaze on her, Olivia spread her hands in a daze. I accidentally cut my finger while cooking. Before I could do anything, Mr. Linus rushed to me and sucked the blood from my finger. And then Mrs. Heath dragged me over here. Dad, I'm the problem. Vanessa has nothing to do with this. Tatiana's palm swatted his back. Why are you putting in good words for her? Mom, I admit that I like her, but this has nothing to do with her. Olivia didn't expect herself to take the limelight. Huh, what did you say? Stop playing dumb. I've long figured that something's fishy about you. So you were coming after my son. I was right. Mason, what are you going to do about this? Mason found it slightly ridiculous. What do you think I should do? Are you going to let this calculating woman stay in our house? She's coming after your son. Helplessness crossed Mason's face. I think it's the other way round, though. What? Linus put weight in his words. He's right, Mom. I like Vanessa, but she didn't know about my feelings before this. Don't misunderstand her intentions. I sucked the blood from her wound voluntarily. Two words struck Olivia when she noticed the solemnity radiating off him. She thought, I'm doomed. Chapter 1163. Linus was not any ordinary person, and Olivia didn't wish to interact with him in any way. If this continued, something beyond her plans might happen. As an afterthought, she waved her hand in denial. Let's straighten things out, Mrs. Heath. I'm not interested in Mr. Linus. I also have a child. I'm married. Linus didn't act as his usual reticent self as he blurted, haven't you already forgotten him? What if you can't remember him forever? I heard that you have a daughter. I don't mind treating her as my own. I'm serious about you, Vanessa. Tatiana slapped him without holding herself back. Ridiculous. What kind of nonsense is this? Are you trying to give me a heart attack? I asked you to find yourself a wife, but you found a taken person. Someone with a daughter at that. Are you out of your mind? Mom, I'm an adult in my 30s. I know what I'm doing. Olivia raised her hand warily. Can I give my 2 cents? Mr. Heath, Mrs. Heath, I swear on my name that I didn't seduce your son. If Mrs. Heath is feeling uncomfortable, I can leave the house instantly. The mention of her departure made Mason slam the table. You promised me that you'd leave only after the new year. You're not allowed to go anywhere without my permission. Tatiana's expression turned grim at Mason's fury. Just what is wrong with the two of you? Did she cast a spell or something? Mason glared at her. Did you come here because of this matter? Did they do anything disgraceful? Linus is in his 30s, for God's sake. It's normal for him to have feelings for a woman. Do you want him to bear feelings for a man instead? But what's wrong with her? She became a miracle doctor at a young age. Forget about your opinion of the relationship. Vanessa doesn't even reciprocate his feelings. Stop getting ahead of yourself. With a flop on the chair, she patted her chest to calm herself down. How can you say that? Are you implying that Vanessa is out of his league? I didn't say that. What I mean is, she doesn't even like Linus. You don't have to be all jumpy about it. Linus chimed in. Mom, I hadn't confessed my feelings to her. She didn't know about it before this. It's a one-sided crush. Just send me to hell, will you? Tatiana swept her arm in the air. Crystal's right. This woman is a vixen that drives people crazy about her. If I don't take any action, we'll be doomed, she said to herself in her head. Once she left, Linus showed an apologetic face. Are you all right, Vanessa? I'm all right, Mr. Linus. In order to not have this happen again, please don't cross the line. Got it. The glint in his eyes lost its glow. When Mason and Olivia were left alone, Mason asked, "Is it true that you don't like my son?" "Your son is an outstanding person, but he's not my type," she answered straightforwardly. He chuckled. "Actually, you're not bad. It wouldn't be bad for you to marry my son." She patted her chest. "Forget about it. I'm afraid Mrs. Heath will beat me to a pulp. It shouldn't even be in my wildest dreams." Mason could read her feelings easily. Only Tatiana was being overprotective of Linus. "Mr. Heath, I shall head back to the kitchen to make you a meal." Olivia wrapped a band-aid around her wound before continuing where she left off. None of the people in the Heath family were normal. Each one was weirder than the other. Chapter 1164. 2 days later, Julia light-heartedly called Linus to meet up. "Linus, here are the perfumes you told me to look for. Give 'em." Lines of perfumes were arranged before her. She proffered them to him carefully. "Here, they're herbal-scented perfumes. They're that popular, and they might not smell that nice. Give them a try. How bad could they be?" Olivia's natural scent mesmerized him. Although it was the scent of herbs, it didn't put him off. Instead, he found himself addicted to it. The moment he opened the lid of one, a pungent scent rushed to his head and he almost fainted. It indeed smelled bad. He opened over 100 perfumes one by one. "Is there any that you like?" "It's not right." "What is?" "It doesn't smell like a certain herb but more like a bunch of them mixed together. I can't tell what it is. Anyway, the fragrance I'm looking for isn't strong. It's mild and it smells nice." Julia deflated. There's no such thing unless it's the person's natural scent. But who would naturally smell like herbs? Natural scent, Linus muttered. Something crossed his mind, and he dialed a number. "I'm searching for a person. It's the woman who sat in front of me in that music show." Disappointment descended upon her face. "Linus, do you have someone you like?" He hummed in response. "Sorry for the trouble I've caused. I'll pay for these perfumes." He stood up because he had something else to attend to. There was a schedule to welcome the envoys. Time was running out, and he needed to rush to the venue. It was Olivia's first time attending such a grand party. Ethan mingled in the crowd with a mask on his face. As the doctor, she could only follow him from a distance so that she could react in time for emergency situations. Rufus was in her company. While people's attention was focused on those prominent figures, Rufus sneaked his way to Olivia. He lowered his voice. "How have you been these years, Olivia? I heard stories about you. Why didn't you reach out to me when you were at a dead end? I had it coming for giving up on my studies. It'd be shameless of me to come beg you. Don't worry, difficult times are over. I'm doing great right now. I didn't bring disgrace to your name. I remember your advice." His emotions remained unplacated still. Her decision to relinquish everything and leave back then made him age overnight. Fortunately, she had set her mind to pick up medicine again. "As I've said, you're born to be a skillful doctor. I'm proud of what you've achieved today." They shared a smile, for they had finally met each other at the top. Like those days in college, Rufus began instilling knowledge in her as she followed him. The meal was followed by a visit to the Maritime Museum, which was the next plan on schedule. Olivia glanced at her memo at times. The important figures' medical histories were etched in her head. Even medicines were prepared in case of emergency. "You're getting better," Rufus couldn't help but praise her. "You're no longer the inexperienced intern. It's all thanks to your good teaching, Mr. Moran. You're getting better at buttering people up too." It saddened him that people only grew up from hardships. Olivia suffered a lot to come this far and yet he didn't know anything. Chapter 1165. The Maritime Museum collected all sorts of artifacts from different countries. It wasn't usually open to the public, so it was Olivia's first time visiting. She was stunned to see the stuff that was on display. She fell behind the crowd as she was carefully observing each single item on display. The one item she was most shocked by was a statue. It was pure white and looked very natural under the lighting. She was creeped out when she noticed the face on the statue because it resembled her own. But the statue was an antique from hundreds of years ago. It was probably a coincidence. Olivia turned around and realized that the crowd had already moved forward. She went and caught up to them. After all, she was paid to do her job. She had to focus on getting it done. Before she could take a few steps, she noticed a foreign reporter squeezing through the crowd to get to the front. It wasn't even the time for interviews yet. Why was that person in a rush? Olivia was a very cautious person. That person had his sights set on Mason. There was killing intent in that person's eyes. Surely no one would be stupid enough to do anything here, right? If anything went wrong, it would become an international incident. Olivia quickly sent Ethan a text. The person was already rushing forward when Ethan stopped to read the text. There wasn't enough time. Olivia reacted quickly. She leapt toward Mason when she heard the gunshot. The bullet grazed her cheek, and she was able to push Mason into the water. There was a huge splash. That person opened fire again, but the bullet didn't hit anyone. The next second, he was subdued by Ethan. Chaos ensued as the security team quickly came forward. Olivia was extremely calm. She stood in front of Mason the whole time. She only helped him out of the water after the danger had passed. She was soaked. A man's coat was suddenly dropped on her head. It was Ethan. He couldn't stay with her because of his duty, but he told 2 security guards to bring her somewhere to get changed. Things were completely out of control. An assassination attempt happening here was a big deal. The news of this incident would have to be kept from the public. Olivia noticed that her mask had been torn. The bullet had grazed past it, and it was soaked. She touched the mask with her fingers. This type of mask couldn't be soaked in water. It would lose its original shape when it came into contact with water. The mask was useless. She had no choice but to remove it. Luckily, she was just a doctor who wouldn't stand out in a place like this. Ethan could help cover for her later. Olivia heard the door unlock when she just finished texting. She figured it was Ethan who came. She touched her face and complained to him. It was so close. I was almost disfigured. She stopped talking abruptly. It wasn't Ethan who came but Linus. She could feel her heart sink. Why was it him? It was the worst case scenario. She regretted her decision to show off. She had exposed herself. Linus locked the door behind him. Mr. Linus, phone vibrated. He took it out, and a voice could be heard clearly. I've looked into the person you told me to. She's the daughter of the Fordham family. She has another interesting identity. Her ex-husband is someone you know. Tell me. Linus' voice was very cold. The room was so quiet they would have been able to hear a needle falling. The voice coming from the phone was especially clear. The person slowly said, Ethan. Linus hung up and stared daggers at Olivia. Vanessa, or should I call you Miss Fordham? Chapter 1166. Olivia didn't expect the cover she had been keeping up for so long to be blown at that moment. Linus slowly walked toward her. Mr. Heath, I can explain. Linus slammed his fist on the dressing table, which caused Olivia to shudder. So you never lost your memories? Linus said through gritted teeth. Olivia knew there was no point in lying. So, she nodded. Yes. That child that Crystal saw was Ethan's daughter. Yes. You and Ethan. Olivia licked her lips. It's complicated between us. She didn't even know how to describe their relationship herself. She couldn't just say he went from her ex-husband to her sex friend, right? It was pretty ridiculous. So you. Olivia immediately said, Mr. Heath, I'm indeed Ethan's ex-wife. Vanessa is my code name. I didn't create it to get closer to you or your family. I did it to keep myself safe. Keep yourself safe. Some people have been after my life since a few years back. Even Ethan wasn't able to find who wanted me dead. I had no choice but to go into hiding and live my life with another identity. I actually hadn't seen Ethan for over 3 years. We were only reunited when he came to the village, and I helped him cure the poison he was afflicted with. As for saving your father's life, I didn't actually plan for that. I can't predict the future, and I didn't really want to be part of this mess. Olivia stared at him intensely. I don't care if you believe me or not, but I never intended to hurt your father. I believe you. Linus withdrew his hand. Or else you wouldn't have been the first one at his side, protecting him. Mr. Heath, I had wanted to leave long ago. If you hadn't tried to convince me to stay multiple times, I would have left after I completed the surgery. Like this situation right now. Ethan wanted me to save your father without any malicious intent. But now, seeds of suspicion have been sowed. You'd think he sent me to your father's side with some ulterior motive. That was exactly what Linus would have thought before. But Olivia had just risked her own life to save Mason, so he was already convinced otherwise. Your feelings for him, Mr. Heath, that's personal. I'm sorry, but I won't say anything about that. Do whatever you want to me. Linus stared at her face for a moment before saying, I'll keep your secret. I won't tell my father or anyone else. You can stay. I trust you. If your face will bring you trouble, you can keep up your old appearance. Olivia sighed. Thanks. You've saved my father's life multiple times now. I should be the one to thank you. There are a lot of people out there right now. You can wait here for the moment. I'll get someone to bring you out of here from the back door later. Okay. Then, someone knocked on the door. Ethan had come. Since Linus already knew her secret, she had nothing to hide. She went to open the door. Ethan wrapped his arms around her as soon as he walked in. Liv, are you okay? I was so afraid just now. It was so dangerous. You were too reckless. There were so many guards around. Why would you rush in before them? Let me check if you're hurt. Ethan was about to undress Olivia. Then, Linus cleared his throat. Ethan finally noticed there was another person in the room. Why are you here? Chapter 1167. They used to be brother-in-arms. But time passed, and they spent many years apart. At the moment, the Heaths viewed Ethan as a major threat. So, they weren't as close as they used to be. Ethan wrapped his arm around Olivia's waist. Since you already know, I don't have anything to hide. Liv is my wife. Ethan's childish attitude was amusing to Olivia. He was so clearly trying to make known the fact that Olivia was with him. He used to be a cold and domineering man, but he had become so childish. It was funny and frustrating at the same time. Correction. She's your ex-wife, Linus reminded. Olivia's eyes widened. Ethan had become childish, but Linus wasn't much better. What happened to these two? Ethan replied condescendingly, even if she's my ex-wife, it means she used to be mine. Unlike a certain someone who never even got to be with her. Besides, we have a few adorable children together. Do you know how cute my daughter is? Olivia was rendered speechless. Why was he suddenly showing off? Linus didn't relent. It's pretty strange that the two of you have a green-eyed child together. Linus was implying that Olivia wasn't faithful to him. Ethan's expression changed. What do you know? Liv's life was hanging by a thread back then due to a malignant tumor. She had no choice but to go through a unique herbal procedure. That's why the child she birthed is extraordinary. I see. Linus finally understood why there was an inexplicable smell of herbs on Olivia. All in all, there's a deep bond between us. No one will be able to come between us. Linus snorted. If that's the case, why are you divorced? Ethan was at a loss for words. It was something he had no comeback to. I heard that you even planned to marry Marina Carlton 2 years ago, right? That's something I was forced into doing. Seems like your so-called true love isn't that impressive at all. Olivia raised her hand to stop them from escalating their argument. All right, stop this. I'm not hurt, but my mask is torn. I can't show my face in public. Liv, I'll bring you out. Shouldn't you be protecting my father? I should be the one to bring her out. The two of them actually started to fight over that. Linus didn't choose to abandon his feelings for Olivia even though he had discovered her true identity. Olivia tore out a piece of cloth to cover her face. Enough. I'll go out like this. Don't come with me, either of you. Then, she found a pair of sunglasses which covered up her eyes. With her entire face now covered up, no one would be able to recognize her. Ethan called Brent over. Send Mrs. Miller back. Yes, Mr. Miller. See that no harm comes to her. No more slip-ups. Understood. Brent felt like Ethan was acting weird. It was like he was putting emphasis on the word, Mrs. Miller. He didn't know that Ethan was saying that for Linus to hear. Olivia wasn't in the mood for any more childish arguments. She quickly left the room with Brent. Do we know who the assassin is? The person's identity has yet to be confirmed. It could be some imposter from a foreign country. Olivia frowned. Who would be so bold as to make a move at this point in time? Was it to cause an uproar? There were already 2 assassination attempts on Mason in such a short period of time. It had become dangerous to stay by his side, especially when he would resume his duties, as he would have to show up to these types of events. Even if it was unlikely, there was still a chance another assassination attempt could happen. Olivia wondered if she should still stay here. Chapter 1168. Olivia was sent back to the Heath residence. Although Linus said that he trusted her, she felt like her future here was up in the air. Many people wanted to stay around the Heaths for the status and opportunities that came with being close to Mason. Besides, Mason had just experienced 2 assassination attempts. The Heaths wouldn't just let her leave. Olivia waited in the tea room. It was still cold out. Brewing some tea and lighting a scented candle was very relaxing for her. There weren't any classified documents in the tea room, just some good tea. Mason learned that she liked drinking tea. So, he told her that she could brew tea for herself. The teas that were stored in his tea room were all very high quality. They were some of the best that money could buy. She wasn't bold enough to do it while Mason was present. But there wasn't anyone there at the moment, so she was able to let herself go and taste the teas one by one. All of them were great. The teas in this room alone were worth several villas. Olivia noticed that the candle was about to burn out. So, she went to look for some more. She was curious to see what type of aromatic items Mason had in his collection. She opened one of the drawers and saw some scrolls. She accidentally dropped one. It was a drawer that stored pictures, not incense. She felt a little guilty as she had invaded Mason's privacy. Olivia was about to pick it up, but the scroll was already unfurled. It was a black and white picture of a woman. Could it be Mason's first love? Olivia crouched down to pick it up. Suddenly, she felt like something was off. The woman was sitting on a cherry tree. The smiling face was identical to the one she saw in a photo. The scroll was yellow with age. It was clear that it wasn't the product of this time. It should have been around for a few decades. The woman in the picture was Miss Nat. Olivia suddenly recalled that Mason said that her eyes looked like someone else's. Olivia looked like Miss Nat, but her face was concealed under her mask. Only her eyes were exposed. Olivia was flustered. Mason knew Miss Nat. What was the story between them? Were they friends or foes? Mason was a man with an incredibly distinguished status. Olivia didn't dare to reveal her identity to him before she knew the relationship between them. She quickly picked up the scroll and put it back. Then, she lit a calming candle and brewed another pot of tea. She was able to collect herself after that. But her emotions were quickly stirred up again as she pieced together the information she had. If Mason really knew Miss Nat, he might be able to provide some leads for her to find her parents. It seemed like she couldn't afford to leave the Heaths yet. Mason returned at night in a bad mood. Tatiana was beside him, talking to him. Olivia knew it wasn't the time to talk to him yet. Since he liked her angel food cake, Olivia figured it might help her with a breakthrough. So, she had someone prepare some cherries. A housekeeper quickly called her over. Mason set his teacup down when he saw Olivia. "Come here, Vanessa." Olivia set the angel food cake next to Mason. "Mr. Heath, I made some snacks for you. I figured you probably didn't get to eat your fill at the banquet. You should eat some." Mason wasn't thinking about the food at all. He held her hand and said, "Vanessa, I need to thank you for saving my life today." "No need. I just happened to notice that person looking very suspicious. That's why I ran over. I didn't actually know he was going to do anything to you. All that matters is that you're okay. You should eat the cake while it's fresh." Chapter 1169. Olivia shoved a piece of angel food cake into Mason's mouth in a panic. She almost choked him. "Does it taste good?" "Yes, it's tasty." Mason wanted to talk about what happened before, not the cake. Olivia added, "Last time I made this, you said it tasted familiar. Have you eaten this somewhere else?" Mason said nostalgically, Nowadays, the desserts on the market are catered to the tastes of you, young people. They're all sweeter than before. Back in my day, it was completely different. This is something I tasted a long time ago. An old lady taught me this recipe. She said there was a cherry tree where she used to live. They would take the cherries and make angel food cakes every fall. Life was tough back then. Children didn't even have snacks they could eat. Most families could only hope for more fruits from the trees they had. But they wouldn't let their children eat too much because they had to sell those fruits at the market. By the way, Grandpa Mason, have you been to Seaburg City before? Of course, I've been there before. Oh, what I mean is, have you been there around 50 years ago? There was a place called Warlot Street. Do you have any memories of it? Warlot Street of Seaburg City. Mason shook his head. I don't really remember. Those were turbulent times. Even the city names were changed repeatedly. Olivia's eyes dimmed. Was she overthinking it? Had he never been to Warlot Street? But the woman in the picture was clearly Miss Nat. Vanessa, you're acting weird today. You can ask me directly if you have any questions. You've saved my life twice. I'm indebted to you. I'll tell you whatever you wish to know. Olivia made up her mind. Even if Miss Nat was his enemy, it should be fine if she was just asking about her. It would be great for her if Mason actually knew Miss Nat. Grandpa Mason, the thing is, I happened to see a picture when I was drinking tea just now. Before she could finish her sentence, someone barged in. Dad, are you okay? I heard there was another attempt on your life. It was Crystal. She rushed in with a worried expression. I'm fine. Vanessa saved me in the nick of time. There were so many people on the scene. Why was she the one who saved you? Crystal asked. She felt like something was wrong. Why are you so rude? She saved my life. Instead of thanking her, you're suspecting her. Noticing the anger in Mason's tone, Crystal's tone softened. Dad, I'm just worried about you. If I knew this would happen, I would have gone with you. It's fine. I'm unharmed. Crystal muttered under her breath. You've been having bad luck recently. Who are the ones trying to kill you? And she just happens to save his life both times too. Olivia's expression changed. Miss Heath, what are you implying? Are you saying I'm related to the assassinations? Please don't make such bold assumptions without any proof. I'm just saying, there's no need to get so worked up. Are you actually feeling guilty? Enough. Get out if you don't need anything. You're giving me a headache. Mason felt annoyed at the sight of Crystal and Tatiana. Crystal stomped her foot and ran out with tears in her eyes. She ran into Tatiana, who was walking into the room. What's wrong? Why are you crying? Mom, I said that woman's bad news, but Dad doesn't believe me. I feel like something's off about her. Tatiana pulled her away. Don't say these things to your father. After they got to Tatiana's room, she said, I feel like something's off too. Look at this. She took out a picture. It was a photo of Brent escorting Olivia away from the scene. But it was a picture taken from behind. Her face couldn't be seen. Chapter 1170. Crystal was confused. Mom, what do you mean? What's wrong with this picture? Tatiana proceeded to show her the surveillance footage. Can you see where the shot went? It grazed her cheek. I looked for many videos that were closer and clearer. I'm sure that the bullet touched her face. Even if it was a flesh wound, there should be some mark on her face. Did you see anything on her face just now? Crystal finally understood what Tatiana was trying to say. She shook her head. I didn't pay much attention, but I don't think there were any injuries on her face. Look at this picture. Why did she cover up her face? I get it now. The problem lies with her face. That's right. How do you think she made the injury disappear? There aren't any medications in the world that can heal an injury so quickly. Unless something blocked the damage for her. Since it's her face. I understand now. That's not her real face. Yes, there have been a lot of advancements in facial molds. It's not just used in the entertainment industry anymore. Some molds can be as thin as a layer of skin. Some of the best assassins use this to conceal their identity. Mom, you're scaring me. Are you saying she's an assassin? I'm not sure, but she's quite suspicious right now. What should we do? Does she have some ulterior motives? I don't know. If she wanted to kill your father, she wouldn't have saved him twice. She must be after something else. Then we have to expose her. Tatiana thought for a bit and replied, let me think about it. Your father trusts her a lot now. Don't tell anyone about this yet. Understood. Crystal was very worried. She turned around and told Yale about it almost immediately. What if she's really trying to do something to my dad? Yale finally had some dirt on Ethan. Olivia was recommended to the Heaths by Ethan. If something was wrong with her, it would mean something was wrong with him too. Crystal, we're on the same team. I'm definitely looking out for you. From what Mrs. Heath said, it's very dangerous to keep that woman around. It doesn't matter why she chose to conceal her identity, but it can't be for anything good. If she was a good person, she wouldn't have to hide, right? You're right. So, leave it to me. We need to expose her in front of everyone. Okay, I trust you. Yale whispered something in her ear. Crystal was still in doubt. Will that really work? Just trust me. Don't you hate that woman? That's for sure. I'm curious to see what she's hiding under that mask. Yale whispered a lot of sweet nothings into her ear. He knew that Mason intentionally set up the 3-month deadline. It was to let him down more gently. He had to take this chance to get closer to Crystal. The best way to bond with a woman was to talk smack about another woman with her. It was a method that would work with most women. Both Yale and Crystal were looking forward to the day Olivia was exposed. Ethan had gotten one over him one too many times. He finally had a chance to retaliate. If he could find some evidence on the scene, Ethan would lose Mason's trust completely. He couldn't wait for that moment to come.